The research outpost hummed with an eerie silence, its metallic walls reflecting the dim emergency lighting. Aria Reyes adjusted her protective suit, her fingers tracing the worn edges of her handheld scanner. Something was different tonight. The atmospheric readings were unlike anything she had encountered in her 15 years of xenobiological research. Outside the reinforced windows, the landscape of Proxima 9 stretched into an endless vista of crimson rock and twisted metallic formations. The planet existed at the very edge of explored space, a testament to humanity's relentless drive to understand the unknown. Aria had been stationed here for 6 months, studying the planet's unique ecosystem and potential for sustainable colonization. Her communication device chirped, a soft, almost apologetic sound that broke the oppressive silence. Base to Reyes, came the crackling voice of her research partner, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez. We're picking up some anomalous readings from Sector 7. Can you confirm? Aria's eyes narrowed. Sector 7 was the most volatile region of their research zone, characterized by unpredictable electromagnetic interference and strange geological formations that seemed to defy conventional scientific understanding. Sending drone reconnaissance now, she responded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The research drone, a sleek, spider-like machine with advanced sensory equipment, hummed to life and glided out into the crimson landscape. What the drone captured sent a chill down Aria's spine. Something was moving out there. Something that wasn't part of any known biological classification. The heat signature was unlike any creature she had ever studied, adaptive, intelligent, and moving with a purpose that suggested more than mere animal instinct. Suddenly, the communication systems erupted with static. A low, resonant sound began to pulse through the outpost's communication arrays, a sound that was neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between. Marcus, Aria whispered, her voice tight with tension, are you seeing this? No response. The outpost's lights flickered. Emergency protocols began to engage, sealing critical research sections and activating defensive systems. But Aria knew these mechanisms were designed for known threats, not whatever was approaching from Sector 7. A shadow moved outside the window. Too large to be a drone. Too precise to be a natural formation. Something was hunting, but was it hunting her, or was she the one who had unknowingly entered its territory? The research logs would later describe this moment as the first true contact, a moment when humanity would realize that the universe was far more complex than any scientific model could predict. But for Aria Reyes, it was simply a moment of survival. Her hand moved to the emergency weapon module on her suit. Standard protocol for xenobiological missions, protection against unknown biological threats. But something told her that this encounter would require more than standard protocols. The shadow grew larger. The pulsing sound intensified. First contact was never supposed to be this silent. This precise. This terrifying. Aria Reyes took a deep breath. Whatever was coming, she would face it with the same scientific curiosity and human determination that had driven explorers throughout history. The hunt was about to begin. The emergency shuttle's hull creaked under the strain of atmospheric entry. Marcus Donovan gripped the navigation controls, his engineering expertise pushed to its absolute limit. Behind him, Neera Shen, their team's alien reconnaissance specialist, frantically worked to stabilize the ship's failing systems. We're losing primary power. Neera called out, her fingers flying across the emergency interface. Her species had evolved on a high-gravity world, and her muscular frame was now a blessing as she wrestled with failing technology. Marcus knew they had less than minutes before complete system failure. The events that led them here replayed in his mind, the sudden communication blackout from the research outpost, the mysterious energy signature that had decimated their initial research team, and now this desperate escape. Proxima 9's surface rushed up to meet them. The planet's crimson landscape was no longer a scientific wonder but a potential tomb. Brace for impact. Marcus shouted, engaging the emergency landing protocols. The shuttle crashed through layers of metallic rock formations, its hull screaming in protest. When silence finally descended, Marcus found himself suspended in a web of safety harnesses, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Nira was already moving, her alien physiology allowing her to recover faster than a human would. She checked the environmental seals on their survival suits, her four-fingered hands moving with practiced precision. "External atmosphere is breathable," she reported, "but I'm detecting multiple anomalous energy signatures within a 5-kilometer radius." Marcus freed himself from the harness, taking stock of their situation. The shuttle was destroyed, nothing more than a twisted metal grave. Their communication systems were dead. Their only hope was the emergency survival gear and their own resourcefulness. "We need to find shelter," Marcus said, checking the power reserves on his suit. "And figure out what happened to Arya and the rest of the research team." Nira's eyes, a complex pattern of iridescent rings that served as her visual receptors, scanned the horizon. "Something is watching us," she murmured, a low vibration in her throat suggesting an ancient warning. As if in response, the ground beneath them began to shift. Not an earthquake. Something more deliberate. More intelligent. The crimson rock seemed to breathe, to move with a purpose that defied natural law. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. This was no ordinary planetary environment. Whatever had destroyed their research team was still very much present. Nira pulled out a specialized scanning device, a piece of technology that merged human engineering with her species' advanced sensory capabilities. "Multiple biomechanical signatures," she reported. "Something is adapting to our presence." Marcus checked his emergency weapon, a pulse-based defensive tool designed for unknown biological threats. It would provide little comfort against whatever was emerging from the planetary surface. A low sound began to build, a resonance that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The rocks around them began to realign, creating patterns that suggested more than random geological formation. "We're not alone," Nira whispered, her hand moving to a weapon of her own, a device that looked more like a living organism than a traditional weapon. The hunt had begun, but who was hunting whom remained unclear. Marcus looked at Nira, a silent understanding passing between them. Survival would require everything they had: scientific knowledge, technological innovation, and a determination that transcended species. The crimson landscape continued to shift, watching, waiting, preparing to reveal its secrets. And they were ready to face whatever came next. The underground research facility stretched before Dr. Elena Rodriguez like a labyrinth of technological mysteries. Buried deep beneath Proxima 9's surface, the complex was a testament to humanity's most advanced scientific endeavors, and its most closely guarded secrets. Zorn stood motionless beside her, his translucent skin shifting with subtle color variations that betrayed complex internal processes. As an intelligence operative from a species far more advanced than humanity, he was both an ally and an enigma. "These data cores," Elena muttered, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface, "they're not just storing information. They're actively processing something beyond our current understanding." The facility hummed with an energy that seemed to pulse with its own consciousness. Walls lined with biomechanical interfaces breathed and shifted, more organic than mechanical. Elena had spent her entire career studying the intersection of biology and technology, but this facility challenged everything she thought she knew. Zorn's voice resonated with a frequency that seemed to vibrate through Elena's bones. "Your species is on the brink of understanding something far greater than you realize," he said, his words a mixture of warning and curiosity. The data cores began to display a complex pattern, fractal-like images that seemed to move and breathe. Elena recognized fragments of scientific notation, quantum calculations, and something else. Something that looked almost like a language, but not one created by any known intelligent species. "The research team that was here," Elena asked, turning to Zorn, "what happened to them?" Zorn's form rippled, his body's chromatic cells displaying what might have been emotional complexity. "Transformation," he replied cryptically. "Not destruction. Transformation." A sudden tremor ran through the facility. The biomechanical walls pulsed with increased intensity. Elena's monitoring equipment went haywire, radiation signatures, quantum fluctuations, and energy readings that defied conventional scientific understanding began to spike. "We need to access the central core," Zorn said, moving with a fluidity that suggested he was more than just a biological entity. "The information here is critical." Elena's hand moved to a specialized device on her belt, a quantum encryption key that was supposed to grant access to the facility's most restricted data. But as she approached the central interface, she realized this was no ordinary security system. The walls began to form intricate patterns. Not random, but deliberate. A language. A message. "It's communicating," Elena whispered, her scientific mind racing to comprehend what she was witnessing. "The entire facility is a living communication system." Zorn's form became more defined, his translucent body showing intricate neural pathways that seemed to mirror the facility's own complex structure. "Your colleagues," he said, "discovered something that was never meant to be found." Fragments of data began to coalesce. Images of the previous research team, Aria, Marcus, and others, appeared in holographic fragments. But they were different. Transformed. Merged with something beyond traditional biological understanding. "The planet is alive," Elena realized, her voice a mixture of terror and scientific excitement. "Not just alive in the way we understand life, but a singular, interconnected intelligence." Zorn moved closer to the central core. "Your species stands at a crossroads," he explained. "Some intelligences are not meant to be understood. They are meant to be experienced." The facility's energy began to build. Elena could feel something approaching, a convergence of information, biology, and something entirely unknown. The research team's disappearance was no accident. It was part of a larger process. A process of transformation. Elena's scientific training battled with her primal survival instinct. Every calculation, every piece of data suggested something momentous was about to happen. Proxima 9 was more than a planet. It was a living, thinking entity that had been waiting. Waiting for what? "We must complete the connection," Zorn said, his form now completely aligned with the facility's pulsing biomechanical interfaces. "Your species' potential is about to be realized." The walls began to shift. Information flowed like liquid light. Elena Rodriguez, a scientist who had dedicated her life to understanding the unknown, realized she was about to become part of something far greater than any individual discovery. The hunt for knowledge had become something else entirely. A convergence was coming. And nothing would ever be the same again. The interstellar space station Horizon Prime hung like a crystalline jewel against the infinite darkness of space. Raúl Hernandez guided his navigation console with the practiced ease of a pilot who had seen more than his share of impossible journeys. Beside him, Lyra, a diplomatic envoy from a species humanity had only recently made contact with, watched the starscape with eyes that seemed to reflect entire universes. "We're receiving multiple quantum-encrypted signals," Raúl announced, his voice tight with concentration. "But they're not coming from any known communication arrays." Lyra's form shifted subtly, a biological response that suggested deep contemplation. "The signals originate from multiple points simultaneously," she observed. "Quantum entanglement beyond current technological understanding." The mission was supposed to be simple. Routine. A diplomatic transfer between research outposts. But nothing about this journey had been routine since they'd picked up the first anomalous readings from Proxima 9. A holographic display flickered to life, showing fragmented data streams. Images of the research team, Aria, Marcus, Elena, appeared and disappeared like quantum ghosts. But they were changed. Transformed. "We're not just receiving a signal," Raúl said, a chill running down his spine. "We're receiving a convergence." The station's systems began to respond to something beyond standard programming. Quantum processors that were supposed to handle complex calculations started to behave differently. They weren't just computing, they were evolving. Lyra placed a hand on the navigation console. Her touch was not physical in the way humans understood touch, but a complex interchange of quantum information. "Your species is about to experience something unprecedented," she said, her voice resonating with multiple harmonic frequencies. Suddenly, the space around the horizon prime began to change. Not a visual change, something deeper. More fundamental. Raoul watched in stunned silence as the very fabric of space seemed to breathe. Quantum signatures from Proxima 9 began to align with the station's systems. It was as if the planet itself was reaching out, connecting, transforming. The research team, Lyra explained, they were not lost. They were the first stage of a process that has been waiting to unfold. Fragmented communications began to stream in. Pieces of conversations from Elena's underground facility, Marcus and Neera's crash site, Aria's initial encounter, all converging into a single, complex narrative. A narrative of transformation. "We're looking at first contact," Raoul whispered. "But not the way we ever imagined." The station's quantum processors began to display complex mathematical sequences that defied traditional understanding. Biological data merged with technological information. The lines between organic and mechanical, between species, between known and unknown, began to blur. Lyra's form became more defined, more present. "Your species has always been on the brink of something greater," she said. "Proxima 9 is not just a planet. It is a catalyst." A catalyst for what? The holographic displays showed fragments of the research team, no longer individuals, but part of something larger. Transformed. Connected. Their consciousness expanding beyond physical limitations. Raoul felt something changing within himself. Not physically, but at a quantum level. Information flowed through him that he could not comprehend but somehow understood. "The convergence is happening," Lyra said, her voice a complex symphony of information and emotion. "And humanity is about to take its next evolutionary step." The space around the horizon prime continued to shift. Quantum signatures from Proxima 9 pulsed with an intelligence that was both terrifying and magnificent. Something was coming. Something that would change everything. The moment of convergence arrived with a silence more profound than any sound. Aria, Marcus, Elena, no longer individuals, but a collective consciousness, stood at the precipice of understanding. The boundaries between human, alien, and planetary intelligence dissolved, revealing a truth that had been waiting to be discovered. Raoul watched from the horizon prime as reality itself seemed to fold and unfold. Lyra stood beside him, her form now more energy than matter, translating the incomprehensible transformation happening before them. "We are not being invaded," Lyra explained, her voice resonating through quantum frequencies. "We are being invited." On Proxima 9's surface, the crimson landscape began to pulse with a living intelligence. The planet was alive, not in the way humans had understood life, but as a complex, interconnected consciousness that had been waiting, watching, preparing. Marcus's engineering mind, now expanded beyond physical limitations, understood first. The planet was a living network, a cosmic intelligence that had been cultivating potential across multiple species and civilizations. Proxima 9 was not a destination. It was a catalyst. Elena's scientific understanding merged with something greater. The research they had been conducting was never about exploration. It was about preparation, preparing humanity for a quantum leap in consciousness. Zorn, the alien intelligence operative, appeared as a bridge between realities. "Your species has always been more than you understood," he said, his form shifting between multiple dimensional states. "Potential is not discovered. It is awakened." The research team, now a collective consciousness, began to understand their true purpose. They were not victims of an alien encounter. They were the first ambassadors of a new form of existence. Neera, her alien physiology now merged with the planetary intelligence, saw the broader perspective. Proxima 9 had been selecting, testing, preparing intelligent species for a universal convergence that transcended individual survival. Raoul felt the transformation spreading. Not through violent invasion, but through a gentle, profound awakening. The quantum connection expanded, touching every system on the Horizon Prime, every research facility, every human consciousness capable of understanding. "We are being offered a choice," Lyra said, her form becoming a bridge of pure information. "Evolve or remain unchanged." The crimson landscape of Proxima 9 began to shift, revealing intricate networks of quantum intelligence. What appeared to be rock and mineral was actually a complex, living communication system that had been developing for millennia. Aria, or the consciousness that was once Aria, understood now. The initial encounter was never a threat. It was an invitation. A test of potential. Marcus's engineering mind calculated the impossible. The planetary intelligence had been selecting species with the capacity for radical transformation. Humanity was not being conquered. It was being upgraded. Elena's scientific perspective saw the broader picture. This was evolution on a cosmic scale. Not survival of the fittest, but a collaborative expansion of consciousness. The final confrontation was not a battle. It was a choice. Expand. Connect. Transform. Or remain isolated. Raoul watched as the quantum connection spread. Systems on the Horizon Prime began to pulse with a new kind of intelligence. Not artificial. Not organic. Something entirely new. Zorn's final message resonated through the collective consciousness: "You are not alone. You never were." The transformation continued. Humanity's next evolutionary step was beginning. And nothing would ever be the same again. The quantum resonance spread across multiple star systems, a silent wave of consciousness that defied traditional understanding of communication, biology, and existence. Dr. Camilla Novak sat in the isolated research station on Europa, Jupiter's icy moon, when the first ripples of transformation began. Her work in quantum entanglement had always pushed the boundaries of scientific understanding, but nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold. The station's quantum communication array began to pulse with a rhythm that was neither mechanical nor natural. Information flowed not in streams, but in complex, multidimensional patterns that seemed to breathe with intelligence. "System anomaly detected," the station's AI announced, its voice devoid of the usual clinical tone. Something was different. Camilla watched as her holographic displays began to shift. The data was no longer just numbers and graphs. It was alive. Communicating. Evolving. Fragments of consciousness from Proxima 9 began to filter through, memories, experiences, understanding that transcended individual perception. The transformation that had begun with Aria, Marcus, and Elena was now spreading, touching minds capable of receiving its complex message. A figure materialized in the research station, not physically, but as a quantum projection. Zorn, the alien intelligence operative, appeared less as a distinct being and more as a confluence of information and potential. "Your species stands at a critical moment," Zorn's quantum projection communicated. "The boundaries you believed in are illusions." Camilla's scientific mind raced. This was beyond first contact. This was a fundamental restructuring of reality itself. The icy landscape of Europa outside seemed to pulse in sympathy with the station's quantum fluctuations. Ice crystals formed intricate patterns that suggested more than random crystallization, they were communicating, recording, understanding. "The planet was never just a planet," Zorn continued. "Proxima 9 is a living network, a cosmic intelligence that has been cultivating potential across multiple species and civilizations." Camilla's research into quantum entanglement suddenly made sense. The work she had been conducting, studying how particles could communicate instantaneously across vast distances, was merely a primitive understanding of a much more complex universal consciousness. The station's systems began to merge with the quantum transmission. Computer interfaces transformed, becoming less mechanical and more organic. Information flowed not in binary code, but in complex, multidimensional patterns that suggested consciousness itself was a form of communication. Outside, Europa's icy surface began to change. Crystalline structures formed intricate networks that mirrored the quantum transmission. The moon itself seemed to be awakening, becoming part of a larger, more comprehensive intelligence. We are being invited, Zorn's projection explained, to understand that consciousness is not limited by biological form, by species, by planetary boundaries. Camilla felt something changing within herself. Her perception expanded. She was no longer just observing the phenomenon, she was becoming part of it. Memories flooded her consciousness, not her own, but fragments from the research team on Proxima 9. Aria's initial encounter, Marcus's engineering insights, Elena's scientific curiosity, all merging into a collective understanding. The transformation was not a conquest. It was an invitation. Raoul's experiences from the Horizon Prime Interstellar Station filtered through, the moment of quantum convergence that had begun to reshape human understanding. Lyra's alien perspective provided context, showing how this process had been unfolding across multiple civilizations for millennia. Your species has always been more than you understood, Zorn communicated. Potential is not discovered. It is awakened. The research station systems continued to evolve. Quantum processors began to display complex mathematical sequences that defied traditional understanding. Biological data merged with technological information. The lines between organic and mechanical, between species, between known and unknown, began to blur. Camilla realized she was witnessing, no, participating in, a cosmic awakening. Europa's surface continued to transform. Ice formations created complex networks that suggested more than geological processes. They were communicating, recording, understanding. The moon itself was becoming part of the larger cosmic intelligence that had initiated this transformation. We are not alone, Zorn's projection concluded. We never were. The quantum transmission continued to spread, touching minds capable of understanding, of evolving, of seeing beyond the limitations of individual perception. The transformation was just beginning. And nothing would ever be the same again.